So why should you care? These are enterprises and organizations from around the world, and a lot of technology folks, but frankly, the vast majority of organizations taking the pledge aren't technology developers, they're technology users. These are organizations and people who recognize the fact that their behavior and their choices will determine how much energy these computing and communications devices are using, and therefore how much carbon they're putting into the atmosphere. The goal is to reduce energy, cost, and carbon. You know, I have to be frank here. The mission, the CSCI mission, is very strongly oriented toward reducing carbon impact because we think that's an important thing. At the same time, I also recognize that not everyone sees that as necessarily being important. So there's money in this for you. All right, there's significant money in fact, being more efficient, using power management, reducing the energy that your computing and communication devices are using. And these organizations are all buying and behaving differently than they did before in order to achieve the goal. And that's fundamentally important. You have to buy differently. It's easier to procure efficient systems now than it used to be, but you have to buy them, and you have to then actually do something about it. But there are still, you know, the good news is I've got 705 examples of organizations that are doing things differently. But there's still a hell of a lot of enterprises out there that aren't doing things differently, that are leaving money and carbon on the table that they could be taking off the table and taking advantage of on their bottom line and on behalf of the environment. So there are different steps that you have to take here to address it. You have to procure appropriately. And there's been really good progress on this, right? I mentioned EPA Energy Star has in fact incorporated CSCI's power supply guidelines into Energy Star, and it's a lot easier to find Energy Star qualified PCs and servers and laptops. Back in 2007, when Energy Star first put out a computer specification, many of the OEMs, let's say they hadn't embraced the importance of this. However, they did see it as a marketing opportunity. And so you could find a premium item that they would list as Energy Star, and you'd pay a premium for it. Now it's a lot harder to walk through a Best Buy or go online to order a computer and find a laptop or a desktop that is not Energy Star compliant. That's a massive improvement. It's an important one too because it enables you to then go do something about it. For the amount of power that you pull into the silver box in that desktop to the amount of power that is actively used by the processor and the rest of the silicon and spinning the drives and that sort of thing, it's now at 90% or better. Used to be much lower than that. Servers are ranging even higher, and in fact, you know, this is a case where servers ran behind desktops because for a long time the data center folks didn't really care about energy use. Then both because of the increasing cost of dealing with HVAC for it, but also the increasing cost of energy, the move began, and the server processor manufacturers became aware that in fact providing power management and improved efficiency on those would be good and in fact would give them value in the marketplace. Likewise the OEMs, and now it has rippled through. So the servers are working to become even more efficient than desktops. So, you know, on this I would give CSCI and I would give the industry and the world a fairly good grade on improvement over the last 4 or 5 years. This is a good thing. So I'd say, you know, B plus, A. I'm a relatively tough grader. The second step is turning on power management. And, you know, the good news is it's really hard to find a PC OEM who's shipping systems that don't have power management turned on by default. And they also have an Energy Star compliant power management policy set in place. So if you pull a new pull up a new laptop, a new desktop, there's a very good chance that if you let it sit there for 15 minutes, it's going to drop itself into a suspended state. And in fact, I think, don't quote me on this, but I think in fact, if you let it sit there for another 45 minutes, so it's actually been sitting there for an hour, it will drop into a hibernation so that it's using no power at all. This is a good thing. You saw 1E yesterday talking about Night Watchman Server Edition. 1E also has Night Watchman, not Server Edition, their desktop product. And there are a variety of other products, not just from 1E, but from Verdium, from Verismic, from Phoronix, from a number of other companies that if you really want to automate this completely, it can be done. They put a small agent, and in fact there are agentless solutions as well. Put a small agent on your desktop, on the desktop systems. They let you deal with it from a console, push power management policy down to these desktops, and power the suckers off when they're not in use. But for that matter, bring them awake if you need to shove virus definition updates down, or if you need to do an OS image update or something like that. You don't need to leave them on all night, burning all of that idle PC sitting there doing nothing power. You can also, and in fact Candace spoke, I thought, very compellingly to this, you can get instantaneous and periodic reporting on what those systems are doing, how much energy they're using. And that can be immensely useful for a variety of reasons. She spoke to the fact that it can even be useful for greenhouse gas reporting. Because in fact, I know 1E provides that, and it is in fact also possible to take simple energy consumption information that other products can provide, and with a spreadsheet and knowledge of what your energy costs are, you can get there as well. So you can save the money, you can document how you're saving the money, and for that matter, if before you put in place the power management, power saving policy, you put the products in place, you can measure your baselines from all of these systems. So then you know what with the current default behavior, what you're spending on energy, you can put it in place, you can then measure what in fact changes, and it's really easy to show your ROI and show that it's a very compelling ROI. But this is in fact an interactive, oh, and here we are, it's an interactive calculator. We have a variety of different tools associated with this, but in fact, anybody here got 10,000 or more computers in their enterprise? How many you got? 15,000. Would you please? You have 15,000. If you use power management so that you have the system in a low power state when it's not being actively used, so that you have it off at night when it's not being used, you're going to be saving around $900,000 a year. You know, 100,000 here, 100,000 there, that actually adds up over time.